Hi guys, part two. Okay, right now we are going to be talking about the prompting hierarchy. So this is really important because we as adults just don't give the right kinds of prompts. We just don't. It's just not natural for most of us. So here's an example. You are taking your kid to lunch and you're like, hey, Johnny, okay, so today we have the choices. We have chicken, and I'm holding up, an icon of a chicken, chicken wing or something, or drumstick, or we have spaghetti, and I'm holding up these two, and I go, which one do you want, chicken or spaghetti? Do you want spaghetti? Spaghetti or chicken? Spaghetti? You want spaghetti, right? So this has all happened really fast. A lot of our kids who have communication challenges also have a lot of processing challenges, which means that by the time you have chosen spaghetti right in their heads, they're at the point where you're like, hey, Johnny, and they've just realized that you're talking to them. There's things flashing in their eyes, but they've just gotten to the point that they realize, oh, hey, someone's talking to me. Right? So this has to do with pausing and modeling. So that's what we're going to talk about next. So there's this hierarchy here. We're going to start at the top. And these are how to especially get a kid to not just respond, but initiate. The most important thing is that we need to create motivation. The kids have to want to communicate with us. If we're just throwing food at them and like, sit down, here's your food, here's your favorite toy, I'm going to take you to the bathroom, and doing everything for them, that doesn't motivate them to communicate. That's treating them like they're a little tiny infant that, is not capable of communicating. And I don't know of a single student that I've ever worked with that doesn't want to communicate in some way or another. So our goal is to make them want to communicate. Now, we might make them want to communicate because they really want to get to a toy that you have kind of put up really high and they can't reach it, or a food item that you've maybe locked in the closet, or maybe you get them to want to communicate because you're playing a game with them and you're super fun and they want more of that game because that's a really fun game, or because they have a toy that they really want to show you because they like the social interaction, or maybe they just want to go around and they want to look at all their friends in the class and call them by name if they're able to do that, right? We have to make it engaging. What are they interested in? How can we get them really excited about wanting to communicate with us? Remember, this is not a passive thing. Communication is not passive. This is passive. That is not learning. That is just being passive. We want kids to be engaged, to be excited about communication. So that is the very first step. So let's say you've made a really engaging activity because your kid loves tickles or bubbles. Bubbles are a great example. They love bubbles, right? So you let out the bubbles and your kid doesn't do anything. They're not like, bells or point or whatever. They're just nothing, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give them an expectant pause. So that is a wait time between 5 and 20 seconds. Okay, that's a really long time. So I'm going to say at least strive for 5. Strive for 5 seconds. So I pull out the bubbles and I'm like, hey friend, I've got bubbles. 1 is to say, 2 is to say, 3 is to say, 4 is to say, 5 is to say. They haven't said anything. Okay, so we've done our 5 seconds, and then we're going to start with the indirect cues. And you'll be like, we've got some bubbles. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi. Still nothing. And you're like, okay. Pretend like I even had a bubbles icon on here, although I don't have to. We can use this without the icon. But we've got bubbles because presumably you've taught them before that this is a way to communicate things. Okay, and you wait and there's nothing. And then you're like, okay, look, I want bubbles. And then they still do not. They just give you the look. Right? So at that point, you'd be like, okay, so here we go, Johnny. Let me show you one more time. So and then hopefully they're going to touch it. and you want, okay, hopefully they're going to touch it, bubbles, or even if they just touch, maybe you only do bubbles, right? Maybe you just want them to get to bubbles, or hand you. They can, this, one of the beauties of this board is that I put Velcro on it, so if you have any picture exchange icons, you can put them right here, and you can have the kids work on actually handing it to you if that's where they need to be working at right now, because some kids do a lot better with that. So you got your bubbles there, and then, so that's as much prompting as you're going to do. If they still don't initiate, then you just can kind of talk for them at that point and be like, yep, Johnny, you sure like those, oops, wrong one, like those bubbles. I like them too. Let's do some more bubbles. And then you do some more bubbles. But those are the prompts that you want to take before you just kind of decide for them. You got to give them a lot of time and a lot of chances before you show them all the right answers. And that's really hard. I struggle with that a lot. And I'm supposed to be the expert at it, and I still struggle with it all the time. So just so you know, it is hard. Gets easier with practice. Okay, we're moving on to my yellow page here, which is called Teaching Strategies. So I'm going to tell you some really fabulous teaching strategies for when you are working with a student who is using some augmentative communication or who has just got pretty low levels of language at this point. They're still really developing. So the first one is called Aided Language Input, which I like to call modeling. And that's the whole speak AAC in order to teach AAC and immersing them in that environment of 7 hours at school every day, using their system to teach them their system, right? This way hasn't been very effective over the years. Don't stop. I'm not saying stop talking, but we need to supplement it with their system. And we need to really be doing it all day long. The next one is called the +1 rule, which is when you have a kiddo who is only speaking maybe in 1-word or 2-word utterances, you add one more to it. So your kid who loves the bubbles, and let's say they're even saying it or they're using the icon for it, bubbles, and you're like, yes, let me add one more word to that, want bubbles. Or let's say they move on to bubble or just bubbles again, and you can be like, bubbles, wow. Right? It doesn't have to be a request. We can comment about bubbles. Bubbles are awesome. Wow. Uh-oh. Ew. Fun. Those are all comments we can add to what we're saying. Descriptive teaching is the next thing, and this comes in handy when you have a word that you're talking about for one, I don't know, story is a great example. And you're probably never going to need that word again. I mean, honestly, like, I'm doing a craft with some kids right now, and it's a robot craft. And I really debated. I'm like, do I really want the word robot in their devices? Are they going to talk about robots again? And if you decide, yes, they are, then by all means, put that into their light text system or put them into their devices. But if you don't think they're really ever going to talk about robots again, then just give them some different words to communicate robot. Like here on this system, I could call it the black it. Right? It's like a black it. Or I could go, if I'm using this system, I could go to my describing words. Where are my describing words? So this is a cold, big, slow it. Okay, let's describe it. And you know what? I personally have a lot of word finding difficulties, and this is what I have to do all the time. I have to be like, it's big, it's blue, and I use it when I am really cold. And then someone else is like, you mean a blanket? Yes, that's it, a blanket. Okay, so that's descriptive teaching for when you don't always need to have the exact vocabulary words. Describing the thing can be just as effective, and it can actually be a better strategy because, there's thousands and thousands of words in the English language, and we just can't put all of those on a communication device, right? It's just not doable. So if you can teach a kid how to describe it, it's almost as good. Okay, core words and keywords. I'm going to replace those word keywords. I use the words fringe for that. Core words are the words that make up 90% of what we say during the day. And they've done a lot of different studies and looking through typical toddler language development of what are the most common words. And I would argue from there that we don't just want the most common words, because a lot of the common words are like the, a, things that don't have a lot of meaning. So for me personally, I like to think of the core words as the most common and powerful words. So having the word is on my communication device, you will find this word on almost every high-tech system. Is will be right there in the front because it's a very common word. But you know what? To me, that kid can say, I happy, and that is just as meaningful to me as I am happy. And until that kid is a much better communicator, I'm just more than thrilled with just I happy. So for me, it's the powerful words. The core words are the ones that you're going to use most of the time. But the fringe words are, actually I'll use this one, the words that you need sometimes. So like when I'm doing an art project, these are all words that I probably want to have access to. But when I'm out on the playground, these are not useful words. But the core words could be useful in either case. So let me give you an example here. So I have, so we're going to do a gluing activity, and it's going to be super fun. So we're going to go, and we're going to get the glue. And we need a crayon, right? So we're going to get a crayon. Ooh, I really like that color of crayon. That's a really nice one. That's one of my favorites. Hey, do you want a turn with the crayon? Oh, you do. That's so exciting. I like to take turns. I see that you are coloring more. Oops, wrong way. More and more and more. And oh, something different. Wow. I like your drawing. Okay, so see, I was using there a bunch of the core words as well as those fringe art specific activities. And then you go and you are, you're at lunchtime, right? So I don't need to talk about glue and paper and paint at lunchtime, probably. Okay, but what I do maybe need to talk about is my food. So I'm going to keep my core and I'm just changing it to different fringe words that are more specific for that particular activity. So now I'm going to be like, it's time to go eat. Do you want a drink? Oh, you need some help opening your drink. I can help you. Hey, look, you have my favorite drink today. I really like that drink. Oh, yeah, sorry, I did not bring that drink. I brought something different. So did you see? I still use those same core words. I just changed up what my fringe words were here. So that's why both the core and the fringe are really important. But the core is even more important to kind of memorize because those are the words that you're going to use consistently no matter what the fringe is. Okay, we're going to go through a few more things on this video here. We got our language expansion and extension. So that's, again, when you have a kiddo who's just using 1 to 2 words, add a few more words to it to make it more descriptive and to give them more language. Just like when you have a baby who's like, Daddy, go! Daddy, go! And you're like, yeah, that's right. Daddy is going to the car, right? You add more to it. You don't just say, yeah, Daddy, go, because you're trying to help your kids go move beyond that, make progress. So we need to kind of push them a little bit out of their current zone. We don't make them say, we don't ask an 18-month-old to say, Daddy is going in the car, but you expose him or her to that. Teach meaning by attaching meaning. So what we want to do here is every time the student does something that might be a communication attempt, we treat it as meaningful. So if they've got a board in front of them and they're just like, right? Like, oh, you are telling me that you want to go somewhere and do something different. Or you have a kid that's like, to a food. And then you're like, oh, and bring it up. Remember, we're teaching them how to use it. We got to teach them. You do not like that. By sticking your tongue out, you are telling me that you do not like that. So you're going to take what the kid does and attribute meaning to it, even if they didn't even mean that particular thing. You're guessing at what they're meaning and you're adding words to it and you're telling them why you think that's what they mean. So you pointed towards you. I think you mean you are blankety blank, or you just cried. I think you're telling me that you are sad. So that's how you attribute meaning to things. And the last one on this page is called communicative, can't say that word, too hard for me, functions. So these are the different reasons that we use language. I know a lot of individuals really want to focus on requesting because requesting is often motivating. Remember that very first step in the prompt hierarchy, requesting a toy, requesting food, requesting tickles, requesting bubbles. Those are really motivating things, but communication is a whole lot more than just requesting. What I'm doing for you right now is I'm informing. I'm not requesting anything of you except to take what I'm telling you seriously and to actually, do it. But I'm informing you. I also can use communication to ask some questions. And I can be like, what do you guys think so far? How do I look? Are you guys understanding this? These are all questions, and that's another form of communication. We can direct people and like, go over there, right? So I'm directing you what to do, or use this paper, and I'm directing you what to do. We can describe, we can express our opinions, and sometimes our opinions can get us in really big trouble, but that's a big function of communication. We can reject, right? Like, so a lot of our kids reject this behavior by throwing things on the ground or by hitting or by, somehow through behavior being like, I don't like that. So what if we teach them how to do it a little more appropriately? Be like, I do not, and be like, oh, you don't like that. And what I'd really recommend, as much as you possibly can, is at first honor it so they know they can trust you. Okay? It doesn't mean you have to totally honor it. They're like, I do not want to work, right? I am finished. I'm like, oh, you're telling me you're finished. Okay, you can be finished for the next 30 seconds. And then give them 30 seconds so they know, like, you heard them, you're honoring that, and then be like, okay, now finished is done. Finished is finished. It's time to go do some work again. Right? So we want these kids to understand that we are going to honor what they have to say, even if only briefly. But then they still need to do certain things because they're kids. And sometimes they just got to do some things. Relating information, asking questions, all those things. So we use communication for so many areas. And so we need to teach those to our kids. We can't just have them be little requesting machines. And that means we're not just always going to be doing more because that's requesting. And besides that, I don't know what you want more of. More might mean I want more cereal. It might mean I want more mom. It might mean I want more play on the swings. I don't know what more means. So I need to shape that more very quickly into what you actually want more of. Okay, that's it for this video. I will see you again in the next video.